Hello, my name is Jim Childers, and I'm a band director who uses listening excerpts to develop my students and to grow them into better musicians. I'm here today to encourage you to use listening excerpts and to also share with you some thoughts about how you can do that very efficiently. If you don't own many recordings at this time, that's all right. You can download all of the recordings of the President's Own from their website. I'm going to put their URL right here. I would also encourage you to check out episode 1 of this series, where I give you some very specific details about how you can download their music. They're one of the greatest bands in the world, and you can download their music for free. So there's no excuse to not have a lot of recordings. In episode 1, I also share a lot of information about how you can set up your band room, how you can amplify your music, how you can store your music, how you can retrieve your music so you can be extremely efficient and not waste any time in rehearsals or sectionals. Episode 1 also gives a lot of information about a resource book that I think you would find very valuable. Within that resource book, there are tons of listening excerpts that are organized into tables, and those tables are categorized based on concepts and topics that you would encounter every day within your teaching. The name of that resource is Listening Excerpts to Develop Band Musicianship, and it's available from giamusic.com. When you go to their site, click on Music Education for Life. It should be pretty easy from there to find it. I'm going to put a QR code right here. If you scan that, you can view the table of contents of that resource book so you can see all the different categories that are there. But for now, let's get on with the demonstration. In this episode, we're going to deal with a table from my resource book called Characteristic Tone Flute. And here's a scenario where that table might be useful. Let's say you're in a full band rehearsal or maybe a sectional rehearsal, and you're noticing that your flutes are just not sounding that good. You're noticing their tone, it's just undersupported, it's lacking richness, and you decide to yourself, hey, I bet this would be a great time to use a listening example. So you grab the resource off the shelf, and if you're new to using the resource, you're definitely going to want to look at the table of contents to see where the table is at, or even which table to use. If you're really fearful of standing in front of your students and just thumbing through a book and wasting time, you could even, in your after rehearsal time, pick out a couple of excerpts to have ready for them the next day. But let's say you know that you need to use the flute table, and it's one of the very first ones in the book. So you go to that table, and you're scanning that table very quickly to find an excerpt to use. Now, when I say scanning the table, what you're doing is you're looking for albums or CDs that you possess, and you're also looking for titles of selections that grab your attention. One of the things that I really like about the tables is on the right-hand side of each table in the notes column, I have listed exemplary by some of these examples. These are some of my favorites. And so if you see that you have that album and I've listed it as exemplary, that might be a good one to pull up. But let's say in this instance you decide, okay, I'm going to use that example from Carmen, and it has a timestamp of 0.01. So you know it's going to start right at the beginning. So the next step is you got to get this thing queued up. So I have all of my things stored in iTunes. So I go over, and in the upper right-hand column of my iTunes, I start typing in a keyword. I use Carmen, and of course the example pops up right away. And so I get that queued up. Here's a couple recommendations. 3 really simple steps to get the most out of your listening. Before you actually hit play on that piece of music, you want to focus your students' attention on what to listen for. So I might say something to my students like, hey, I want you guys to listen to this flute player's tone quality. I want you to listen to how round it is, how supported it is. It's not loud, but it's resonant. So I give them a few things to try to listen for. The second step to efficient listening is to use some gestures whenever they are listening to help them identify what you want them to hear. So it might look something like this. I focus their attention. I get the excerpt playing. I use some hand gestures to show that line of error. I might do something to signify roundness. use of the diaphragm. So see, that excerpt was very short, but your students are going to hear some great tone quality. It'll motivate them to have better tone quality. And you also get to now what I call the third step of efficient listening, and that is to give them some technical advice. You might say some things to your flute players about, did you notice that line of air and how lovely and lyrical that was? You might mention to them the shaping of the oral cavity. Your pedagogy and your little bag of tricks, that's your business. So, but I know sometimes with my flute players, I will mention, especially when they go up high, lifting their eyebrows. And what I'm trying to get them to do is not to squish the inside of their mouth and get a harsh or forced tone. But you might have some things that you recommend, but this is a great time to do that after they have listened and before you turn them loose to play again. I wanted to take a quick moment and show you yet another example from that flute table. This one does not begin right at the beginning of the excerpt, and I just want to demonstrate how quickly you can get music in front of your students. So let's say we're in that same scenario. You grabbed your resource book, you were looking through the flute characteristic tone table, and you saw Satiric Dances Movement 2. So you grab your glasses so you can see what you're doing. You hop over to your iTunes. You go in the search window. You type in a keyword like satiric, and you see the example jump up. So you click on it. Don't forget, you want to focus their attention on what to listen for. And then this one, the time stamp is 29 seconds. So once you get the example started, you can drag that cursor over just before that 29-second spot. Now this example is so short, you may even want to let them listen to it twice. So I'll just take that time bar cursor back a little bit. And then, of course, don't forget the third step is to give them some technical advice once again. Well, hopefully that shows you how you can very quickly put some really good examples of music in front of your students to try to motivate them, to try to create some discussion. Another great thing about using listening excerpts is that your students will have an aural image in their mind that they're pairing with words that you use. So in future rehearsals, if you say the word round or dark or resonant, your students are going to associate that with something that they have listened to, and the impact on them will be greater. Well, hopefully you've seen how small little doses of listening can help you get some big results out of your students. I just want to encourage you as you keep using listening excerpts in your rehearsals and in your sectionals. Best of luck to you. Bye.